Hi everybody, my name is Sam. I am an autistic student and today I will be facilitating a 10-minute audiovisual training in regard to supporting people with ASD at grocery stores. First, what is ASD? ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorders, is a natural part of human variation that affects about 1 in 31 people. Autistic people's brains work differently than the larger population, and this can manifest as differences in development, cognition, sensory processing, movement, and communication, to name a few. While there can be some overlap, there is no one way to have autism. Each person with ASD has unique needs and requires individualized support. To dispel any misinformation, there is no cure for autism. Myths that vaccines or acetaminophen cause autism are both scientifically inaccurate and harmful because they perpetuate the idea that having autism is wrong or a disease that needs to be fixed. Autistic people can experience just as much empathy, connection, and success as neurotypical people, but in a different way maybe. For more information, please feel free to pause this slide or visit the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. One important thing to note is that most of autism research is centered around cis white males. This leads to an overall lack of understanding in how it presents in women, people of color, and transgender individuals, who are much more likely to mask. Masking is a strategy where people with ASD either intentionally or unintentionally hide their autistic traits to blend in and avoid discrimination. It takes a lot of energy and can lead to a plethora of problems such as burnout, misdiagnosis, and even autoimmune health issues. This is why it is crucial to increase educated awareness and acceptance for autistic communities, so less people feel pressured to mask. Intersectionality matters. Supporting the rights of people with autism should always include autistic people who are also women, black, queer, low income, etc., and understand how these identities can overlap to create unique challenges. Zooming back out, why does supporting autistic people at grocery stores matter? I want to clarify that food is a basic human right. It shouldn't be a privilege to have access to food. But to provide some relevant context, in this country, food insecurity is a real issue. SNAP is a federally funded program that gives money to low-income households to spend on food. However, at the time of writing this video, new work requirements for SNAP eligibility have been put into place, leaving millions of people, many of which are autistic, hungry and unable to access funding for food. With this broader issue, the environment at local grocery stores may be more stressful and tense as a result. Imagine you are an adult with autism, unable to work consistently due to communication challenges, and being on a tight budget because you are not SNAP eligible. With all of this already on your mind, imagine then trying to calculate the best deals while at a crowded grocery store, under bright fluorescent lights, blasting music, and people bumping into you. A place that you have to go to survive is absolutely overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be. Especially during these hard times, it is all the more important to support the most vulnerable members in our community. Alright, now I would like to transition to specific protocols that would realistically help support people with autism at grocery stores. I'll split this into two parts, supporting shoppers with ASD and supporting employees with ASD. First, how can we support shoppers who have autism? One strategy would be to implement sensory-friendly hours. Grocery stores should designate a few hours where lights are dimmed, overhead music and announcements are muted, employees put restocking shelf items on pause, and self-checkout machines have their volumes lowered. The goal of these measures is to decrease overwhelming stimuli, creating an overall calmer environment for those with autism. Sensory sensitivity compounds, so implementing even one of these strategies would be more helpful than none. Additionally, during sensory-friendly hours, stores can put a large sign in front of the door asking all shoppers to keep their voices down. Some grocery stores have already adopted this practice, such as PCC in the Seattle area, which has sensory-friendly hours from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sundays, which is great. My only suggestion would be to change their hours to a later time and increase the duration, just to account for commuters and weekend workers. Another strategy would be to utilize inclusive interior design and planning. Many people with autism are also wheelchair users, and it is really important that grocery stores are physically accessible so that everyone can get the nourishment that they need with ease. These accommodations would depend on the space that they are in, but could look something like ramps where there are inclines, wide aisles, clearly labeled signs, and checkout counters within wheelchair reach. Ideally, grocery stores would provide motorized carts and staff trained to assist. Inclusion of accessible bathrooms at grocery stores are also really important, especially for people with diabetes or Parkinson's. Bathrooms should always be wheelchair accessible, which means having wide enough doors and grab bars. All amenities should be within wheelchair reach, and to provide related resource, I recommend checking out the People in Search of Safe and Accessible Restrooms, which is a coalition advocating for bathroom inclusivity. Moving on, how can we support employees who have autism? One of the major barriers and challenges autistic people face in regards to employment is discrimination, whether that be treatment in the workplace or when getting hired. A lot of discrimination stems from a lack of understanding and misinformation around people with ASD, which is why a mandatory educational module about what autism is, similar to the first section of this video, should be shown to every member of the team. This would be the first step towards creating a more welcoming environment, which can also be constructed through hiring people of all backgrounds. With a diverse workforce, differences in general are seen as contributing factors rather than flaws. Specific strategies for training employees with autism are clear directions, task modeling, performance feedback, breaking down larger responsibilities into smaller tasks, as well as assigning a coworker mentor, which would all be supportive. Some more considerations would be to provide a quiet and dim space for decompression and rest, as well as notifying autistic employees of future protocol changes and scheduling shifts well in advance. And most importantly, building a relationship with the employee, asking what would be most supportive to them, and constructing an individualized roadmap to help them contribute to the best of their potential. Having empathy and giving them the benefit of the doubt, and just being okay with not completely understanding them, could really go a long way. For a more in-depth and step-by-step process, I would recommend reading the Organization for Autism Research's Employer Guide. And that is the end of the module. I hope I was able to spread awareness around ASD, communicate the importance of intersectionality, and highlight why we need to make grocery stores a more inclusive space. I do believe that if more grocery stores implemented some of the practices I've outlined, more autistic people will feel empowered and included, whether they are shopping or at the workplace.